By the way, this is not a sponsored track, but it's a good start. And I will explain at the end what's the connection with nudging is, but because it does have a connection. So I'm going to tell you more about how you can use nudging. I will explain nudging and I will give you some examples. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Ard Kramer, come from the Netherlands, come from Holland, mostly say I'm a tester by heart, a big heart, as you can see. I'm a tester since late 90s. I did some other things like project management and things like that, but I really love testing. I'm a test manager at the moment in a car sharing company in the Netherlands, but the real company I'm working for is OrangeCrest, and OrangeCrest is a small consultancy company in the Netherlands. Besides that, I call myself a Qualisopher, which is a good reason to have a conversation with me, so I can explain to you what it means. But of course, it seems quite obviously, it is a combination between quality and philosophy, because I like to think and talk about quality and testing, of course. Besides that, I'm also program chair of a conference in the Netherlands, the Test Automation Days. It's an international conference. It's going to be the 12th time this year, I think. It's going to be in Rotterdam, where I live very close to Rotterdam, so it's going to be a home match for me. And if you are interested to join or even to speak at Test Automation Day, you always can reach out to me. If you have some interesting things to share, reach out to me and we can see what I can do for you. But this talk was made possible by people who joined my workshop last year. So I definitely have to thank them because they gave me inspiration to give this talk. So here they are. This was last year. And they're going to wave at you. And I want to thank them again and again, which I did. I did it at a few talks already. I did nudging in a few conferences already. So I keep on thanking them because they gave me a lot of inspiration what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to start with a very simple question. You're all testers, right? Who's a tester? All testers. Great, great, great. And you're here to get, of course, to get inspiration, right? See some hands? Yeah, you're here to inspiration, to learn more, to be a better tester, right? So my simple question is, do you test better than the average tester? Can I see some hands? Who thinks he's testing better than the average tester? You are really testers, right? You're a bit modest, because mostly when you ask this question, this question was also asked to drivers. Who thinks he's better than the average driver? And you know what? The majority says he's better than the average driver. You know anything about statistics? But when the majority says then he's better than the average, that's not possible, right? Usually we have a problem. So the only thing I just wanted to share with you is that we have biases, that we think in a maybe irrational other way, that we have things which is not really rational, logical. And of course, we know as testers that we have biases, right? Who knows a confirmation bias, right? We think that it's going to work. There's one thing for sure, we as testers can never say it's going to work, right? We say there's a probability that it's going to work. Who's going to ask you for any assurance? Huh? That's why I don't like the word quality assurance. We don't assure quality in any way. We just give them feedback, right? And we know that people are fallible, that we make mistakes, that we have a tendency for confirmation bias. Yeah, I tried something, it looked good, so it's probably going to work. Like I said before, we can never prove that's going to work. We run some tests, it looks okay, But we can't give any guarantee that's going to work, right? Because, yeah, when it's going to production and a user does something you never expect, and there it goes. Something went wrong. But we know that we have a lot of biases as human beings, and we have to take that into account when we do some testing. Like I said, a confirmation bias, a functional attribution bias, which I love very much, especially when I'm sitting in my car. If you want to know what I mean with that, please reach out to me during a coffee. But we have incredibly many biases. Just a short overview of biases that we have. You don't have to read them, but you can find this on Wikipedia. But these are all the biases that we have. Immensely. So we have to take all those into account. That's going to be hard. But you also can think the other way around, and that's what I did. Because when you know that people have biases, you also can use them in your advantage. Ever thought about that? Using your biases in your advantage. And in fact, that's what a lot of people do. Using those biases in your advantage. For example, marketeers are doing that. Also in politics, they're doing that. But I'm going to tell you more about it. But first, the inspiration to think about biases in a positive way came from Rosie Sherry, the boss of Ministry of Testing. I don't know if you know her or know the Ministry of Testing, but she once gave a presentation why and how testers should act like marketeers. And that was an inspiration, a starting point for me to think about what are marketeers doing. And marketers are really good at using those biases in a positive way because they probably want to sell something to you. And this is not exactly what Rosie Sherry said in her talk, because she was more talking about building up a community, what also marketeers are doing. But the thought about how can we make use of marketeers was a starting point also to get this presentation done. Okay, that's about my inspiration, how I get here, how we are facing biases and how we can deal with that. But I haven't said anything about nudging, right? I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to show you it with a small clip again. So here it goes. This is just an example of what nudging is. So I'm going to give you a definition. Don't read it because I'm going to give you the three most important items because it's a lot of text. So let's bring it to the essence. And the essence is that it's about choice architecture. You give people a kind of choice that they can make. So give them different opportunity, different things to choose from. That is the first part of nudging. Second part is alter people's behavior in a predictable way. In fact, that's what I did in the small clip, is to throw the garbage into the can, right? So it is to alter people's behavior. Don't throw it out, throw it in the garbage can. So you try to do it to change the behavior in a predictable way. And the third part is without moving any options or significantly changing their economic incentives. So you don't really want to make that big change to change their incentives. So these are the three things. It's about choice architecture, it's about alter people's behavior, and removing any options or significantly changing their incentives. So not really doing really significant on that one. So bring it back to one simple sentence. A nudge is an intervention that must be easy and cheap to avoid. So this is going to be the essence of nudging. So you try to change people's behavior in a very simple, predictable way without really changing their incentives. Keep that in mind. But where does it come from? It comes from behavioral economics, psychology, political theory, and marketing and sales. Like I said, marketeers are using this a lot. Political theory, I don't mean to try to influence elections. That's not nudging. When I mean political theory, it's more an example that small local communities use nudging to improve your environment, like the garbage can. Another example which I can give comes from the Netherlands, where we have a big market square and the traffic had to go over the market square because there was cars running, cycles, people were walking there, but a lot of accidents happened. And they thought, how can we use nudging in that way that it becomes more safe to cross the market square? And what they did was quite simple. They removed all the signs on the market square. They removed the roads, so it just became a market square where you could cross with a car, you could cross with your bicycle, and you could cross walking. So what happened is that you became aware of all the things around you. You were not driving on a road where you had the signs and you know where to stop, etc. So it was kind of making something all together. We have to take each other into account. Oh, I have to watch out for a pedestrian, or somebody's cycling over there. So that's more an example in how political theory, how a nudge is used by a local government. Behavioral economics are going to tell you more about it, because it is also how we respond. And I was in a bookshop yesterday here in Bratislava, and I saw the book lying in the bookshop, and the book of Daniel Kahneman. I don't know if you know it, Thinking Fast and Slow. Anybody knows that book? It's a great book, and he is using, at least he's referring to systems. The way we think works in two kinds of systems. And that's also something that you should be aware of when you're doing nudging, because mostly we are using system 1, as Daniel Kahneman calls it. And system 1 is our fast using system. It's unconscious, it's parallel, associative, low energy, it's the doer. The fact that I'm walking around is just my system 1. Mostly when you're just doing something, okay, are you going for a drink or whatever, you don't think about it, you just do it. Sometimes it also happens when you're driving your car. You're driving your car home and you come and you're at your home and it says, I can't remember how I drove. It just happened, right? That happens. That's system 1. It's automatically the things you are really do just by doing it. So you're doing it all during the day. It's the easy system that you, but if you have a system 1, you also should have a system 2, right? But the system 2 is more like slow. It's conscious. It's serial and analytical. It costs a lot of energy. It's your planner. This is a system that costs a lot of energy, as it says. That means that you don't have it. Oh, Siri is responding to me. Sorry. Sorry, Siri. System 2 is you're going to use it for a few hours a day. Costs a lot of energy. If you're really feeling well, it's hard to use system 2. It's really think deep. Mostly when you're doing really good testing, if, for example, in a test session, I hope you're going to use system 2. Then you'll really think, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. If you do it automatically, I don't know if you're really testing the right things, but that's more my personal me. So system 2, it's only available for a few hours a day. You have to think about it. So that's not the system we're going to use during nudging. Mostly when we are using nudging, we are referring to system 1, trying to get the people into the right way. So when you're thinking about nudging, and this is also a small clip from the book. The original book was written in 2008 by Thaler about nudging, and he was using this small picture. The big elephant is nudging the small elephant into a certain direction. That's how you see nudging. Because system 1, in fact, says we like to walk the elephant trail. Mostly also when a new neighborhood is built, and they're building pavements all over the place, people tend to take straight lines, right? People do that. Sometimes even you can turn it around. Don't make the pavement yet. Wait till how the people walk and then make the pavement, because then you know what kind of shortcuts they will take. And you know, the same thing happens in the Netherlands, because yeah, We like to ride a bike, right? So we also take our shortcuts. We don't like to take the turn, we just take the shortcut. So that's how we use elephant trails. This also happens in your mind. We tend to take the shortcuts. What is obviously, we just do it. We don't think about it. But that's also, let's be clear about it, there's also an ethical part of it. And you should ask yourself the question. Because when I try to give people a choice, also giving the obvious, how can I explain it to myself from the ethical point of view? Do I try to influence people in a certain direction? And if I try to influence them in a certain direction, is the direction ethical right? You should ask yourself the question continuously, is it for the right purpose? Because you can have an argument about it if you say, okay, I'm trying to get more money out of it. If your ethical point of view is, okay, I don't mind making more money, then you're doing it for the right purpose. So when I start thinking about nudging to use it for testing and to improve quality, I also thought about the ethical question. And I think, okay, what would be the right question to use nudging? And that's also going to be the question for today. Because the question is, can we use nudging for the people around us to make better choices, okay, to give them a right choice, to improve quality and testing in our organization? I think from the ethical point of view, this is a good question, right? This is a genuine question. I'm trying to do the right things for the right purpose. Although you still can have an argument about what is my organization doing? For example, if you don't like military and you're working in a military company and the product is about making guns and things like that, then you should ask yourself the ethical question, if I improve the quality of the military things and I'm doing the right things. But that's up to you. You should ask yourself the question. But for today, I'm asking myself the question together with you, how can I improve testing and quality in our organization by using nudges? So we're all set. Let's see if we can look at 6 effects that nudging uses. So that's the biases I was talking about, explaining those nudges. So I'm going to give you more information about it, and the situation, how to apply nudging to improve quality or to improve testing, how you can use those nudges. And this is also the inspiration that they gave me last year. So I'm going to give you some examples. The first effect is the default option. Mostly when you are on the internet, on the website, they give you a default option. I can give you a very simple example of that, which happens in the Netherlands. I got 3 kids, they're all studying at university, and the government in the Netherlands gives you the opportunity to borrow money. So you have to go to the website, and then you have to fill out how much money you want to borrow. But the default option was, I want to borrow the maximum amount. That was the default option. So we went into the page, okay, default option, yes, okay, continue. So a lot of students borrowed the maximum amount of money. And the government says, oh, that costs a lot of money. That was not what we expected. So the simple thing they changed the default option to that you had to fill out how much money you want to borrow. So the students became aware of how much money they want to borrow. Not the maximum amount, but maybe less, because they also have to pay back in the future. So they just changed the default option. And you can see it, of course, if you want to buy some flowers. They just give you the most expensive option. And if you are in a hurry because your wife is coming home in a very short notice, okay, keep on pushing the buttons. Yeah, okay, I want to have the flowers in. And probably you're going to choose the most expensive one, default option. This is a nudge to try to do that. But how can we use it as a tester? Okay, as testers, we want to report bugs, right? If we see something wrong, we want that people become aware that something is wrong in the system. And maybe you're going to use Jira. I don't have any meaning, I'm going to say anything about Jira, but it's going to be used all over the place. But why don't you put the initial status into a blocker? And you have to if you have to report a bug very fast, the default option is going to be, it's going to be a blocker. So you will have the right attention because it's going to be a blocker. So that's quite simple. And you can do that in Jira, just put it in a default option. That's how you can use it as a tester to get the right attention for your bug. So if you look at the 3 criteria I gave at the beginning about nudging, yeah, we're giving you a choice. You still can change the default option to, it's not a blocker, it's a minor or whatever you want to put it in. It's a choice. Is it an intervention? Yeah, for an obvious reason, I put the default on a blocker. It's easy to avoid. Yeah, sure. You can choose another option if you want to. But if you're in a hurry, the default option will be blocker. This is how you can use the default option. I don't know what Siri is doing, but the effect, the decoy effect. The decoy effect. Ever heard about it, the decoy effect? Mostly you see it when you want to have a new scheme for your mobile phone, right? They give you options. Mostly in the plans that they're giving you is like 2 options. But if you really want to do nudging because they want to nudge you into a certain direction, because the green one is the most popular one, the green one is more expensive, you know what they do? They give you a 3rd one. And the 3rd one says, make it much more expensive. And then the green one becomes more obvious. That's the way it works. So if you see like 3 options, always be aware what they do, what do they try to achieve with those options. But also, how can we use that? Because like it says, expensive, but when it's compared to 49, and we'll come back to another bias, which is also referring to this, but you give, at least you have a decoy. The 49 is a decoy. But how to apply, for example, if you have a test approach. If you have, and I think you should offer more kind of test approaches, because mostly it's going to be a negotiation during a refinement or during your planning. You can do the same. Why don't you give them not 2 options, but 3 options? Because you want to nudge them into a certain direction, although they still can make a choice, but you want to have the best one. And I think the middle one probably will be the best one. At least I hope. So that's how you can use it in your test approach. So if you look at it, yeah, it's a choice. They still can have a negotiation about it, about the test approach is one of the 3, which will be the best, which is doable, how we're going to do that. It's also an intervention. You give them more options. And it's easy to avoid. You still can negotiate about the best test approach you're going to use, but at least you thought about it and you try to say, okay, I want to have the best test approach for this story or for this sprint. So this is how you're going to use it. 3rd effect, commitment through consistency. We definitely want to be consistent. But let's show you a small clip how that works.
Consistency is activated by looking for and asking for small initial commitments that can be made. In one famous set of studies, researchers found, rather unsurprisingly, that very few people would be willing to erect an unsightly wooden board on their front lawn to support a Drive Safely campaign in their neighborhood. However, in a similar neighborhood close by, 4 times as many homeowners indicated that they would be willing to erect this unsightly billboard. Why? Because 10 days previously, they had agreed to place a small postcard in the front window of their home that signaled their support for a Drive Safely campaign. That small card was the initial commitment that led to a 400% increase in a much bigger but still consistent change. So, when seeking to influence using the consistency principle, the detective of influence looks for voluntary, active, and public commitments, and ideally gets those commitments in writing. For example, one recent study reduced missed appointments at health centers by 18%, simply by asking the patients rather than the staff to write down appointment details on the future appointment card.
So that's interesting. In fact, it's saying 2 things, right? If you're making a small step in a certain direction, you want to be consistent. The small card you started with. And probably you're also going to have like marketeers giving you a phone call, also in Slovakia, asking you, hi, is this Mr. Kramer talking to? Yes. How are you doing? I'm fine. And don't you think that there's going to be a big disaster in Africa and that we should do something about it? Yes. That's the 2nd time, yes, you're going to say yes. Shouldn't we invest more into to give him more food. Yes, it's the third time. So you obviously want to give us some more money. And if you want to be consistent, you're going to say yes again. That's how it works, right? They want to get you into that yes, 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 yes. And now I got you. Also, writing down is an interesting one. I also come back to that one because we also can use that. If we write something down, most of you say if you write something down, it goes through your head and you give a kind of commitment, right? So how can we apply that also into testing? For example, ask a question to a developer, right? Hey, developer, can you help me out with some test data? Yeah, sure, why not? And do you mind have a look at the outcomes too? Yeah, why not? What would be the appropriate next step? Test. Yeah, right now. Maybe you can nudge your testers to help your testing. Being consistent, asking for some commitment. Because, yeah, he's going to make it go from small to big. And if you say yes, 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 maybe he's going to do some pair testing with you. Because, yeah, why not? It's fun. I like to do that. So that's a choice. How you ask your questions, intervention. Think about the questions you're going to ask your developer. And it's easy to avoid. Every time he can say no, or she can say no, of course. That's an easy way to do it. And about the writing, how can you apply that also as a tester? Mostly, or one of the examples I can give to you is, for example, if you're writing down your definition of done. Maybe in some teams, you write down your definition of done, put it on the wall and says, this is a definition of done. This is the quality standard that we're going to set. Why don't ask your members of the team to put the autograph underneath the definition of done? Then you're going to ask for commitment. That's an interesting one because, yeah, mostly also if you ask people for an autograph, sometimes they feel a bit reluctant because they really think I'm going to give you commitment that I'm going to do it. So you can use that into your advantage as a nudge. So it's a choice. You can do it or you can't do it or you don't do it. It's an intervention. Hey, why don't you write your autograph underneath it? And it's easy to avoid. No, not going to do it. You still have a choice to do that. But maybe think about it. Effect 4, anchoring. Steve Jobs, he rest in peace, was a brilliant guy, and he introduced one of the first smartphones in the world, right? It's his iPhone. Who knows what the first initial price of the iPhone was? Much? $399, much higher. It was above $1,000. And he did that for a good reason. And everybody said, you're crazy. Nobody's going to pay that much money for a smartphone because at that time, it was one of the first smartphones. Nobody's going to buy that phone. And of course, there were some early adapters who said, okay, I'm going to pay $1,200 for that first smartphone. The next step that he did, he lowered the price to $800. And people said, it's much cheaper now. It was still the most expensive phone at that time, right? But it's $800 compared to $1,200. That's much better. That's anchoring. He set an anchor quite high, $1,200. He lowered the anchor and people said, oh, that's relatively cheap. The same works in this. Can you make a small calculation, a kind of your first impression? What is the calculation of this? It's very small. You have a number inside your head? Do it again for this one. And Daniel Kahneman, who I was talking about, did this experiment, and these were the medium estimations. These were the outcomes. As you can see, if you start with a lower number, people will think that the end result will be not as high if you start with a higher number. And you know what? We're not good in calculation because this is the real outcome. So we're not really good at it. But it's also how you start. If you start small, people will think small. If you start high, people will think high. This is how you can use it in your explanation about anchoring. How can we use it in testing? I'm a big fan of using test sessions. So a test session is that you go for like testing for 90 minutes or an hour or whatever. And of course, that means when you're doing sprint planning or doing a refinement, you have to make an estimation. How much sessions does it need to test this new feature? So you have to make a kind of calculation, a kind of what's going to be. And of course, you can use anchoring for that reason. For example, yeah, I just need one test session, but you're not sure. But why not set an anchor to 9? Because that's the point you're going to start a negotiation, right? It says, okay, I think I'm going to need 9 test sessions to do that. And when you have to go down, it will be easier. For example, 6 is the ideal number of test sessions that you need. It's going to be easier to go from 9 to 6 than from 1 to 6. So this is also a way you can use anchoring as a way to get the right amount of test sessions you want to do for a feature. Set a higher anchor always if you want to have the best amount of test sessions that you want to have. Quite easy to use, right? So if you're still looking at the criteria, it's a choice. It's an intervention. You still can go back to 1 or 2 sessions if needed, and it's easy to avoid, okay? You're just setting an anchor, but you still can have a negotiation, how you're going to deal with it. Okay, the 5th effect, the Zeigarnik effect. Whoever heard about Zeigarnik? Because I know a lot of people don't know it, but everybody knows the effect. Everybody knows it, because it's quite simple. Who has his most brilliant ideas in the shower? Right? Everybody is smiling. You know what? That's the Zeigarnik effect. They have a name for it. So, but I have somebody who can explain it better than me. I will give the word to a professor.
If you've ever had a problem or a situation that you're working to resolve, and you're not really thinking about it consciously at the moment, but you're in the shower, and all of a sudden an idea comes to you. Or you go to sleep, and you wake up, or even in the middle of the night, and you have an idea about something that's been bothering you, something you've been working on. That is the Zeigarnik effect. So I'm going to introduce you to Bluma Zeigarnik. Bluma was a psychologist, and she's responsible for identifying the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember incomplete tasks better than completed ones. Ernest Hemingway is said to have used the Zeigarnik effect to his advantage. He would end each day of his writing by stopping mid-sentence. Instead of completing his thought, he would allow the Zeigarnik effect, this productive tension, to work for him. Executives tend to rush to closure. We have a bias for action. We want to move on and get the answer so that we can get a lot of things done. But I always say that perceptive questions are much more important than answers. And this is because questions are tools. Questions generalize across time and place, whereas answers are specific to a given context. It's my hope that you will practice staying in the question, where creativity and energy often reside, along with uncertainty and anxiety. So may Zeigarnik be with you.
May Zeigarnik be with you. So the same effect is that a waiter uses when he's taking up the order, right? He knows exactly who's going, what kind of drink, but never ask the waiter at the end of the evening what everybody had, because he closed down the action and he forgets. But while the task is open inside your head, you still can remember it. You still are, it's buzzing inside of your head. You still use it. So to give you a small definition, we are more likely to remember incomplete task or information task. And the second sentence really bothers me also a lot. That's why you get songs stuck in your head. If you don't finish the song, it will be stuck inside your head. So if you have a song inside you, finish it. Then it's done, you can get rid of it and you can continue. So that's quite interesting, and be aware of the effects. I do have to give a disclaimer, because if you have too many tasks open inside of your head, that's also kind of a danger, right? So sometimes also, if you're aware of this effect, it's also a reason to close down some tasks, because then you're rid of it. You can get rid of it. But you also can use it to your advantage. How to apply it? For example, we tend to finish refinements at the same day, right? We're doing a refinement, looking at some things. But sometimes we are facing a problem and we don't have a solution for it right away. Why shouldn't we ask our Scrum Master, for example, okay, why shouldn't we continue the refinement tomorrow? Because we have still this question open. We don't have a really good answer for that one. So we're going to use the Zeigarnik effect, keep the task open, and we'll come back to it tomorrow. and we finish the refinement. So maybe during the night or taking a shower in the morning, you says, yeah, I got a solution for that one. We should do it differently. Because also what the professor said is we tend to close actions. And that also means that maybe we are overlooking something. The same can happen if you have a bug that needs to be solved, right? And of course, I do understand that sometimes a bug really needs to be solved that same day. But if the urgency is not that high, why just don't wait for a day? Why don't you wait for a day, keep the task open and see if there are better solutions in the morning? That's also how you can use the Zeigarnik effect from a testing point of view. And of course, looking at the criteria, it's still a choice. You can close it down today. It's an intervention that says, okay, let's have a talk about it tomorrow. And it's easy to avoid. No, we have to finish it today. Okay, it's up to you. But you can use the effect to your advantage. So let's go to the last effect. Activate unconscious behavior. It's all around the place. But the example I'm going to give you is quite simple. In the Netherlands, we have trains and you have special compartments where you have to be silent so that you can work or you can sleep. At least it needs to be quiet. But you know what? Dutch people are not always that good in it, so that making phone calls, talking into that kind of compartments. So the Dutch railways were thinking about it. How can we change the behavior that people become more silent? So what is a situation where people are silent from their own, just by the environment trying to seduce them to a certain behavior? And they thought, okay, mostly people are silent in libraries, right? But yeah, creating a library into a compartment of a train, that's going to be hard. No, it's not that hard. You can do it. They did it. Changing the environment in the kind of a library, and you know what happened? People became more silent. Because it works. Yeah, that looks like a library. Shh, it's a library. Be quiet. So that's how it works. But also, how can we use it? And just a very simple example, just giving you another example, is that, of course, I said in Holland we like to bike. You know the Van Moof bikes, electrical bikes? They're really high design bikes, but you only can buy them on the internet. So you know what happens? You buy them on the internet, somebody has to deliver it to your home, right? So they put it in a box, give it to the delivery guy, and he brings it home. Okay, how do delivery guys tend to deal with big boxes? Throw it into the car, do a lot of things with it. So a lot of bikes were damaged when they entered your home. It's a very highly designed bike. You don't want to be damaged, don't want to have any scratches on it. So they thought, how can we change the behavior of the delivery guys so that won't damage the bike anymore? Quite simple. If it looks like a television, you're not going to damage it anymore. But the bike is still in there. So the delivery guys were very gentle with the boxes, and it come at your home. Nice and easy without any scratches. So that's how you can change unconscious behavior. Can we do that as a tester too? Yes, we can. Because I like to have very good risk sessions. I'm going to do one tomorrow. We're going to do some risk storming tomorrow to get the right risks on the table. Hope you're going to join me tomorrow. But how to get the people into the right mood that they have really good behavior, think about risks in the right way. How can we nudge people into a risk session that they will think about risks? I've been thinking about that, and I came to the conclusion. For example, why shouldn't we put some pictures on the wall, just like I did in the compartment, that people are really thinking about risks? What kind of pictures do you need? Maybe these will help. All kinds of disasters that happens around us, earthquakes, typhoons, volcanoes. Will that make the right mindset that people think, okay, all the things that can go wrong? I think so. At least you can try it as a nudge that people will give you the right risks you should think about. So that's also how to activate unconscious behavior. It's a choice. They can ignore the pictures on the wall. It's an intervention. I put those pictures for an obvious reason on the wall, and it's easy to avoid. Okay, I just ignore them. So let's do some wrap up because I'm at the end. Can still think about the effects. Still think about the first one, the default option, right? The button it's already there. You just have to say, okay, that's the one. The second one, the decoy effect. The 3 options, not 2, make it 3 so that the bigger chance that they choose the second one. The little sign in your garden, commitment through consistency. Yes, 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 yes. The anchor, that's an easy one, that's anchoring. The puzzle, which is not complete, the Zeigarnik effect, and the books into the train, activate unconscious behavior. These were the effects I was mentioning. And don't forget, wait for this one, that you have 3 criteria. It has to be a choice. You can choose something else. It's an intervention, and it's easy to avoid. Hey, I can give you some pictures, but there are even more. These are also effects which you can use. I didn't even mention them, but they're all there. These are also nudges which you can use. We used them last year also in the workshop, but these are there. Okay, I'm almost done, but I still have a bonus for you. We started with some laughing. Why don't we end with it?
Vi bringer en servicemeddelelse. Som et forsøg vil dørene i dag kun åbne sig for smilende kunder. Husk at smile, hvis du gerne vil ind.
Okay, why don't you use it, for example, when you're doing a retro? Smile, let them smile before they get in. You get a much better mood if you do that. Thank you very much.